I'm 13 years old. My dad is a minister at a conservative church. We're staying at church between Sunday morning and evening services. I brought my D&D books with me. I realize I need more character sheets, these character sheets. The church copier doesn't require a code, so I start making copies. The youth minister walks in and sees what I'm copying. He gets angry. He says, "Come with me."
Uh-oh.
I started playing D&D in the 80s during the moral panic or satanic panic over D&D. Today I'm going to tell you my stories of how that affected me, then tell you about a new free adventure I wrote that was inspired by those times. After you listen to my stories, you can share your stories and questions with me in the comments. Let's get started.
Cool Nerd Mark.
D&D exploded in popularity in the late 70s and early 80s, and ironically, the controversy surrounding the game brought it more attention. People claimed D&D was associated with Satanism and the occult, that players were being introduced to real spells and demon worship, and that playing the game could cause people to lose touch with reality. Suicides and even violent crimes were blamed on D&D. 60 Minutes aired a segment about the controversy surrounding the game, and a made-for-TV movie starring Tom Hanks called Mazes and Monsters portrayed a role player who loses touch with reality. The movie was based on Rona Jaffe's novel of the same name, which had been inspired by sensationalized accounts of the 1979 disappearance of Michigan State University student James Dallas Egbert III. Egbert's disappearance became national news after investigators speculated that he might have entered the steam tunnels beneath Michigan State while playing D&D. That wasn't actually what happened. Egbert was eventually found alive, but tragically died by suicide the following year. The publicity surrounding his disappearance helped establish the idea that D&D could be dangerous. A few years later, after her D&D playing son Irving died by suicide, Patricia Pulling founded Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, or BADD. This organization campaigned against D&D and distributed anti-role-playing game materials to parents and other organizations. So I followed the youth minister to his office and we sat down. He opened his file cabinet and pulled out this overflowing file folder labeled D&D. It was full of anti-D&D literature, including the track pictured here and some materials from BADD. I had heard some of the arguments against D&D, but I had never seen literature like this before. He proceeded to walk me through all the reasons why the game was bad, even showing me an annotated copy of the very character sheets I had been attempting to photocopy. "Look familiar?" he said to me in a harsh tone. I remember the conversation being 100% one-sided. I didn't agree with what he was saying, but I respected that he had done so much research, which left me a bit speechless. Eventually, he had raised his voice loud enough that my dad, who was next door in his own office, noticed and opened the adjoining door. I was pretty sure I was dead at that point, but my dad looked at him, not at me, and asked to speak to him privately. I sat there quietly for 15 minutes, eagerly reading the folder of propaganda that had been served to me. I could hear muted voices, but couldn't make out the conversation. I never knew what they said in that room, but when my dad opened the door, he told me to finish making my copies, but don't make more than 20. He said we would talk about it when we got home, which was something a 13-year-old kid never wants to hear. By the time we got home, I was prepared to be grounded for the next month and ready to hand over my D&D books. But Dad looked at me and said, "Okay, I think I need to play this game with you to judge for myself what it's all about. I hear what the youth minister is saying, but my accountant plays this game. I'm not sure who to believe." I was shocked and asked if I could have some time to prepare a game. He said, "Sure, we can play in the hotel on our vacation this weekend." So I decided to run him through a few rooms of the sample dungeon in the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. Rather than have him make a character, I just let him play the wizard from the group of our 4 characters that my brother and I would use when we played one-on-one games. I remember there was one room in the dungeon where they caught some ghouls by surprise, and they were 10 feet above them. So my dad asked me if his wizard could throw a bomb at them. I smiled and explained that the wizard had magic missile and fireball prepared. He was pleased. After the game was over, Dad concluded that not only was the game not evil, but it encouraged problem-solving, imagination, and teamwork. My brother and I still play D&D to this day, and we've taught it to our own children. But the story of the Satanic Panic and my youth minister isn't quite over yet. D&D was only a small slice of the greater Satanic Panic movement. Art, comic books, horror films, and especially rock music were also targets of the moral backlash, especially rock music. The summer after the copy machine incident, the youth minister decided on Wednesday nights we would watch a series of videos about the evils of rock and roll and have a discussion afterwards. We did this for 8 weeks. Parents were also invited to attend these classes, which mostly made the discussion between the adults while the kids listened in silence. At the end of the 8 weeks, our church held a record burning in the parking lot. Everyone was supposed to bring their records to burn, but only 2 people did. A 29-year-old church member brought his collection of Beach Boys records, and my dad asked if I could bring a record, any record, even one I didn't like, to be supportive. So by 1987, the Michael Jackson record I had bought when I was 11 was no longer cool, so I offered it up to be burned. The casualties of an 8-week-long crusade against rock music were Pet Sounds and Thriller. You never do forget that smell. I continued to play D&D in various levels of secrecy for the rest of the 80s and 90s. Second edition D&D would tone down the occult imagery in their books, and the panic just fizzled out. The same thing happened with the rock music. Now Ozzy and Twisted Sister is played as background music when I'm shopping at the grocery store. D&D went from being cool and edgy to being nerdy and uncool. That D&D movie in 2000 didn't help. Throughout most of the 80s and 90s, I continued to collect anti-D&D tracts and anti-D&D propaganda. There were quite a few in my collection, but none of them captured the spirit of the time more than Jack Chick's Dark Dungeons tract. The tract follows the story of Debbie, a young college student who gets caught up in playing D&D, which of course leads to her involvement in the occult and tragedy for her friend Marcy. If you haven't read it, I put a link in the comments, so you can pause this video and read it right now if you want. A few years ago, an indie film company near me called Zombie Orpheus Entertainment made this tract into a movie. It's a parody of the track, but it's played very straight and true to the source material. So please check out the movie. They didn't sponsor this video, I'm just a fan. I'll put a link in the description where you can find the whole film, and there are also clips and playlists of it on YouTube. Carrion Crawler. So that's my story from the Satanic Panic times. I'd love to hear your stories. Please drop them in the comments. And if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing for more D&D content. I'm also writing some adventures for D&D, and I just put out a Satanic Panic inspired D&D adventure called Terror in the Steam Tunnels. It has a twist though. The players in this story aren't playing D&D. They are NPCs in a fantasy world playing Papers and Paychecks, a modern RPG jokingly depicted in a comic in the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. In this adventure, your players have to find some kids that got lost in the steam tunnels under a university, and unlike the real story of James Dallas Egbert III, the monsters down there are real. I'm giving away this adventure for free, and it's part of a series of short monster stories I'm calling Monster Serials. Episodic encounters you can drop into your campaign or play in my world of Cruscaria. If you could please download this adventure at the link in the description and leave me a 5-star review, if I earned it, that would really help. I really wanted to end this video with Stairway to Heaven playing backwards, and I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, but here you go.